We're currently in the throes of a full-force non-dairy milk revolution. If you're new to the non-dairy game, you may be hearing people ranting and raving over oat milk. But is it all too good to be true? Let's find out. This is the untold truth of oat milk. With its subtly sweet and creamy taste profile, oat milk's similarity to cow's milk is simply remarkable. It's a pretty ideal alternative for folks who are craving their dairy fix but want to cut back on cow's milk for health or environmental reasons.
So I had an oat milk latte recently to try this out, and it was solid.
If you're at all familiar with oat milk, you probably know one brand in particular, Oatly. It's become especially well-known in America thanks in part to its offbeat approach to marketing. But here's a shocker for you. Oatly has actually been on the market for nearly 3 decades, according to Time. Rickard Usta, a researcher at Lund University in Sweden, began producing his own oat milk in the 90s while researching ways to produce milk alternatives for people with lactose intolerance. He decided to use oats because they're a particularly abundant crop in Sweden. Once he'd gotten the process down to a T, Usta founded Oatly, selling the milk to a small but devoted crowd of milk-loving Swedes. But the company's oat milk never made its way across the pond until 2016, and it quickly took American markets by storm. In fact, Oregon-based Pacific Foods Company was the first oat milk producer to come onto the American scene back in 1996. But you can thank Oatly for creating the modern oat milk craze. Oat milk's rapid rise in popularity could spell bad news for another non-dairy milk, almond milk. When it was first introduced to mainstream markets, almond milk quickly knocked soy milk from its position as the plant-based milk on top. Almond milk has remained the most popular non-dairy milk in the game, with almond milk sales reaching more than $1 billion back in 2018, according to Nielsen.
It's my job to test the product.
However, almond milk brands could be in trouble. For starters, they've gotten a lot of flack recently for not being environmentally sustainable. Plus, the diversification of the non-dairy milk industry could present a potential threat to this nutty dairy alternative, particularly since some critics already think it's less satisfying than the new kids on the block. In fact, oat milk could be the vegan milk that ultimately dethrones almond milk. According to Bloomberg Businessweek, oat milk sales jumped from a mere $4.4 million in 2017 to $29 million in 2019. While that's a far cry from the $1 billion that almond milk reportedly made back in 2018, there's something worth noting. Most of the world's oats are used to produce animal feed, which means that the oat milk industry has plenty of room to expand. Liz Specht, the Associate Director of Science and Technology at the Good Food Institute, told The Guardian, "There's a huge existing acreage that we can safely steal share from without moving the needle at all on total production." Oatly's first forays into the U.S. market were wildly successful, so much so that the company struggled to keep up with America's newfound appetite for its plant-based milk. In December 2018, Fox News reported that Oatly has developed a cult following among hipsters, vegans, and lactose intolerants alike. And then the company ran into a bit of a problem. It was all out of oat milk because there simply wasn't enough supply for America's ravenous demands. At the time, most of Oatly's oat milk was produced in Europe and imported to the States. This slowed down the process of getting cartons of Oatly out of the factories and into American grocery stores, not to mention the fact that the process of making oat milk can't be rushed. According to Delish, the company was working on building its first factory on American soil at the time of the shortage. The facility opened up in the spring of 2019, and the shortage ended thereafter. But in the meantime, Americans who absolutely needed their daily dose of oat milk took to Amazon, where vendors were listing cartons for upwards of $200. After the U.S. facility's opening, Americans have been pretty lucky. We haven't seen an oat milk shortage of that scale ever since. Oat milk brands use a lot of fancy scientific processes to make their oat milk as creamy as possible, but you can easily make an equally healthy version at home. All you need is some oats, water, a fine mesh strainer, and a high-speed blender. You'll want to pick up some high-quality rolled oats for this. Seriously, don't use Quaker instant oatmeal if you want a satisfying and creamy plant-based milk, despite what Wilfred Brimley tells you.
New Quaker Extra. It's the right thing to do, and a new way to do it.
To create the oat milk of your dreams, simply soak the oats in water overnight and blend them until they're smooth and creamy. Oh, and here's a helpful hack for you. You can add sweeteners like maple syrup to really boost the flavor of your oat milk and make it resemble the store-bought version. After blending everything together, simply pour it through a strainer or cheesecloth to remove any sediment from your oat milk and enjoy this high-fiber and easy-to-make non-dairy milk. Your homemade oat milk might taste a little bit different when compared to the cartons you pick up at the grocery store. That's largely because oat milk companies process their milk with enzymes, oils, and other additives that give the product its characteristically creamy flavor. So if you're looking for an unprocessed and healthier alternative, making it at home is your best bet. Oat milk isn't necessarily the drink you should reach for when you need a protein blast. In fact, it contains significantly less protein than soy milk and pea milk. But when you add cow's milk into the equation, oat milk really can't compete. However, oat milk does contain more protein per serving than almond milk, coconut milk, and rice milk. According to BuzzFeed News, the average serving of cow's milk has about 8 grams of protein. On top of that, cow's milk also contains all 9 of the essential amino acids. While different oat milk brands have different protein counts, a 1-cup serving typically only contains about 3 grams of protein, and it doesn't contain a complete amino acid profile. Soy milk, on the other hand, is pretty much on par with cow's milk, at least as far as protein and amino acid counts go. The takeaway here? If you happen to be a vegan bodybuilder, it might be better to stay away from oat milk and get your protein somewhere else. As a general rule of thumb, you should expect oat milk to have slightly more calories than other non-dairy milks.
Not all milks are created equal.
As BuzzFeed reports, a serving of oat milk typically contains about 120 calories, 4 times the amount of calories in a serving of almond milk. That's actually not so bad when you compare oat milk to the average serving of whole cow's milk, which typically contains about 150 calories per serving. Skim milk, on the other hand, typically has around 90 calories per serving. If you're cutting out dairy because you want to cut down on your calorie intake, oat milk will only make a marginal difference. But if counting calories isn't a big deal for you, oat milk might just be the best plant-based milk for you. Still not sure why Oatly was so popular when it first hit US markets? Well, we recommend you march over to the nearest coffee house and order an oat milk latte. You'll quickly see what all the fuss is about. Steamed oat milk is pretty much second to none, at least as far as non-dairy milk and coffee pairings go. Baristas all over the country are becoming fanatical oat milk converts. That's because the milk's neutral flavor profile lends itself quite well to creamy, espresso-based beverages like lattes and mochas. What's more, oat milk froths up really well when you steam it, creating the perfect microfoam for a non-dairy cappuccino, according to Refinery 29. No wonder special barista blends for oat milk have been popping up in coffee shops across the country. These versions are specifically formulated so that baristas can easily foam them up without having to switch up their steaming technique too much, and customers clearly love it.
I always make jokes that it's like oat o'clock because it seems like it comes in waves.
It's no wonder oatmeal is such a popular breakfast item. Oats are incredibly rich in the dietary fiber that helps our metabolism get flowing in the morning. As Medical News Today reports, 1 cup of dry oats contains 7.5 grams of fiber. As a result, oat milk is also a good source of fiber. According to a report in the Journal of Food Science Technology, it contains 2 grams of dietary fiber per serving, whereas cow's milk contains none. Meanwhile, oats contain a type of fiber known as beta-glucan, which has been found to have several potential health benefits, according to Good Housekeeping. In 2017, researchers found that this fiber can potentially boost your immune system on top of lowering cholesterol levels. One thing to keep in mind, Good Housekeeping makes a point to mention that it's still too early to say if the beta-glucan added to oat milk during processing has all of the same effects as regularly eating oats. It's certainly no secret that dairy isn't environmentally sustainable. As The Guardian reports, more or less every non-dairy milk on the market is better for the environment than cow's milk. Producing dairy emits an unparalleled level of greenhouse gases and also takes up more land and water than most non-dairy milks. Then there's the unpleasant issue of cow manure.
Really tackling and addressing the way that dairies manage their manure would represent one of the most significant climate programs we have in the state.
Meanwhile, some non-dairy milks are better than others. Almond milk, for example, is a notoriously unsustainable non-dairy milk. About 80% of almonds are produced in drought-ridden California. Since it takes about 15 gallons of water to produce about 16 almonds, almond milk production has the potential to take a heavy toll on the state's environment, according to the UCSF Office of Sustainability. As far as environmentally friendly choices go, oat milk could be one of the most viable alternatives. According to The Guardian, oats are mostly grown in colder northern areas like Canada and Scandinavia, so growing large quantities of oats doesn't require the same levels of deforestation that many other crops do. Oat milk is a bit of an anomaly when compared to almond and soy milk. This is due to the fact that oats are a grain. Almond milk and soy milk both have a similar nutritional profile since they're both derived from protein-rich fatty nuts and legumes. Meanwhile, oat milk is rather high in carbohydrates, according to BuzzFeed. The average serving of unsweetened oat milk contains around 16 grams of carbohydrates. Soy milk can have anywhere from 3 to 15 grams per serving, depending on the brand and whether or not it's sweetened, and cow's milk usually has 11 to 13 grams. Although oats are naturally gluten-free, things get a little dicier when you explore how oats are processed. As The Kitchen reported in 2011, oats are frequently processed in the same facilities as barley and wheat, both of which do contain gluten. As a result, oats are often contaminated with small traces of gluten even if they don't contain gluten themselves. As with many other non-dairy milks, it's important for gluten-sensitive individuals to check whether the brand and flavor of oat milk they're purchasing is certified as gluten-free. If you're in the US, you're in luck. Several oat milks available in the US are in fact gluten-free or have gluten-free options. Just make sure to read the label before you start gulping. As you've no doubt heard, many oat farms have been known to treat their crops with the weed-killing compound glyphosate, a fact that has left many consumers concerned.
I like a little bit more transparency on knowing what's in my food.
What's all the fuss about? Well, according to U.S. News, the World Health Organization announced in 2015 that glyphosate is probably carcinogenic to humans. Well, for the record, Oatly has stated that they do not use oats treated with the weed killer, so it's probably safest to stick to their milk if you're at all concerned about the effects of glyphosate. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more mashed videos about your favorite foods are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.